are going to be doing the last video in our little mini-series on the book of Colossians. And if you are new to this channel, hello, my name is Emma. I am the person who runs both this YouTube channel, as you probably guessed, as well as the written blog and the Instagram blog, Tea and God, which if you're interested in those are both linked down below. And if you are not new here, welcome back. And yes, I am wearing glasses today. I do not feel like putting my contacts in yet, so that is why we're doing this today. And as usual, before we dive into our psalm of the day, or as usual, before we dive into our chapter for the day, I'll be doing our psalm for the day. Before that, let's do our tea of the day today. We sweeten this Good Earth Sweet and Spicy Herbal and Black Tea, and I've actually tried it for the first time today so far, and it's pretty good so far, so that's good. But as usual, I am reading from my English Standard Version Bible from Crossway Books, and it's a journaling Bible, so it's got the room in the margin for notes and things. But before I ramble on too much longer, let me just get started here. Alright. So, our psalm for the day is going to be Psalm 73, and as usual, I'm just going to spotlight a few of the verses in the particular psalm that I think are really beneficial and interesting to read. So, I'm going to open this psalm of the day by reading verses 1 through 3 in this psalm, which say, "Truly God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled, my steps had nearly slipped. For I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked." And I think that this is really important to highlight because I'm assuming David wrote this one because it doesn't say otherwise, but it's important for us to realize our faults and our flaws. Here it's saying that he had almost slipped, he had almost stumbled because he was envious of the arrogant because of what they had. He was envious of someone else, and that's, it's not something that's, oh, you're such a horrible person for wanting what someone else has, but it's being able to recognize that and realizing, wait a minute, this isn't something that I actually need, this is something that I just think is better than what I have, and therefore it's not, like, something good to be thinking that. It's not good to think that way. It's not good to, think that someone else is better than you because they have this, or, oh my gosh, they have to have such a better life because they have blah, blah, blah. Like, we all know that's not really what the point of life is, So continuing then into verse 17, I think it's important to remember, which it says, "Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I discerned their end." It's really important for us to remember that discernment comes when we are in God's presence. It's not something that's just gonna, it's usually not something that's just gonna hit you upside the head when you're just having a normal Tuesday. Like, normally you're gonna have to be seeking that discernment, be spending time in God's presence, be spending time in prayer to figure out what it is that He's wanting or guiding you to do, I guess, if that makes sense. And then verses 23 through 26 say, "Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterwards you will receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." And I just love this portion of scripture because this kind of reminds us the type of faith and the relationship with God that we should all strive for and really begin to develop in our lives, because I think it's so easy, especially in our culture now, to look at what everybody else has and think that we need that and that we aren't going to have the best life we possibly could if we can't have insert whatever it is that you want here. You know what I mean? Like, really the entire purpose of us existing on this planet is to have a relationship with God. And as much as we might want a relationship with another person, or that career, or the car, or the house, or whatever it is that you want, because I don't know you, like, it's important for us to remember that the most important thing in our life really should be our relationship with Christ, because that's the only thing that's going to truly stand the test of time. Because, as time goes on, people that we care about are going to inevitably die, because that's, what happens. The, whatever cool new thing that you want is going to eventually not be the cool new thing anymore. That house that you really, really want is eventually going to fall into disrepair and need work on it. It's not always going to be strong and wonderful and amazing. I mean, obviously, if you're putting work into it to keep it maintained, like, it's going to last longer, but you know what I mean. It's not always going to be there. It's eventually going to have problems, and you're going to eventually have to fix those. So, all that being said, let's dive right into Colossians chapter 4 today. So, if you guys have not watched the previous videos in this series, it might be helpful because it gives us a little bit of the background from earlier on in this book. but pretty much this book is a book that was written to it was written to a church in Colossae. I don't even botch this word. Colossae. Sorry, I think. Horrible with the names. Sorry, but yeah. So I already read verse 1 of this, I think, last time, because it was kind of the end of a thought from the last chapter, but I will start in verse 1 again and just kind of say what I said then. But chapter 4, verse 1 in Colossians says, "Masters, treat your bondservants justly and fairly, knowing that you also have a master in heaven." And I think that, again, it's just important to remember to treat those that we have authority over justly and fairly. It's important for us to remember that they are still people, even if they screw up and do dumb things. Like, you should always respect those in either authority over you or that you have authority over. You should treat them, like you would any other human being, because contrary to what the media wants to tell you, we are all the same race. Wow, who knew? Anyways, that was a tangent that we don't need to go into today. But continuing into verse 2, it says, "Continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. At the same time, pray also for us, that God may open to us a door for the word, to declare the mystery of Christ, on the account of which I am in prison, that I may make it clear which is how I ought to speak." And I want to go back and highlight verse 2 here, because it says, "Continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful with thanksgiving." And I think that it's just so important for us to remember those three things. You need to be steadfast, watchful, and thankful. It's so easy for us, I feel like, especially in Western culture, to kind of do something really, really, really passionately for a little while and then fall off the bandwagon. I mean, that is essentially the culture that we live in. You have people that, spend all this time trying to get really fit and healthy, and then they backtrack and they aren't healthy anymore. Or you have these people that save for whatever it is that they want, and then they spend all their money. Or they don't save at all. They spend all their money, and then they're in a boatload of debt later. Our society is really about that short-term gratification. So our society today is really about short-term gratification, which is exactly the opposite of what faith is about. Our faith is not just a short-term high. You know what I mean? I mean, it can be that, but realistically, if you want your faith to last and continue to grow and develop, you want it to not be a quick shot of whatever. You want it to be a continuing, steadfast development of a relationship. You don't want to have one of those relationships where the people, instantly fall in love at first sight and just blah, 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 and then 3 months later, they're married, and then a month later they're divorced. You want something that has a firm foundation. That is entirely what the Bible is centerpieced around, is building that firm foundation for us to build our lives upon. And then we also want to be watchful. We don't want to just be spending all our time watching and listening and doing things that we aren't really thinking through and aren't really thinking what the consequences of our actions are. Because if you are spending all your time watching movies that are rated R, or listening to music that has a lot of swearing in it, or a lot of sexual themes and content, you're going to start seeing those things coming to fruition in your life, whether you want to or not. And, people are going to come at me angry when I say that, because everybody wants to be able to do what they want all the time, whatever. But realistically, if you want a life that is a healthy one, where you have a healthy relationship and a healthy faith-centered life, you're not going to be able to do those things and still be only having good things come out. Because, and I said this before, one of my pastors always says is what you behold, you become. It's like when you want to lose weight, you aren't going to eat a bunch of junk food and a bunch of greasy foods, because that's what your body's going to do. It's going to, if you're eating a bunch of fast food and a bunch of just stuff that's coated in grease, you're not going to then somehow magically lose 20 pounds. That's not how it works. And if you do, you're not losing 20 pounds of fat, you're losing 20 pounds of muscle, if that is what happens, you know what I mean? But I just think it's so insane to me how there are Christians that are like, oh yeah, so I'm a Christian, but, Bobby and I do blah, blah, blah. And it's like, are you sure? Or, the Christians that live together before marriage, or, really test boundaries when they're set in place for a reason. I just don't understand it. And it kind of drives me, insane, because I'm like, you can't say you're this and then live completely differently, otherwise you're not what you say you are. You know what I mean? And then the last one, the last key portion of this, verse 2 says to be thankful, which again is something that's so important because I feel like especially in Western society, it's so easy for us to think, oh, I have what I have in my life because I worked hard to get it. And like that's obviously not the case. Like what you have in life is what God has given you. And if there are bad things in your life, it's not that God is cursing you necessarily or anything like that. It's just because of sin being in the world. A lot of times people ask, well, how could there be a loving God if cancer is a thing, or people are starving, or blah, 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 blah. And that question is one where they almost are blaming God for those things. But in reality, if you look at the account, like if a Christian is asking those questions, obviously they probably have gone through something really traumatic, so like it's understandable why they're asking those questions. But when we look back in the account of creation, God says that creation is very, very good. And I don't, think that God would call creation very good if he had created, like bad things, I guess. Like, cancer was created, or, thorns or whatever, I don't know, because then it wouldn't be very good, it would be fallen. And the reason that the world is fallen isn't God's fault, it's our fault because we were led astray. So when people say those things, it's like God didn't create these things, those were what happened when we screwed up. So it's not his fault, it's our fault. You know what I mean? So, continuing on, after that long-winded tangent there, continuing on into verse 5, it says, Walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. And I think that this is important because in verse 5 it tells us to walk in wisdom towards others. It's not telling us to, be a hermit and never reach out to people. It's telling us to, go into the places that you don't want to go into and tell people about what it is that you have. And I feel like that's something that is a lot easier said than done, speaking, from my own experience as well. It's really kind of not fun to go into wherever it's kind of sketchy and tell people, because our society has really developed a culture that hates on us and blames us as Christians for everything when it's not our fault. So there's that. But I also think that it's important how verse 5 says making the best use of the time. And when you think about it from that perspective, that our time on earth is limited and we don't know when that last day is, that can be completely a game-changing and life-changing event when you truly process that you don't know when the last day you're going to walk this earth is. I mean, like, it's something that I'm slowly realizing, I feel like, and as I'm realizing it more and more, it just makes me realize how much stuff that I want to do but I put off doing because I'm scared to do it, but then I realize I would have, not necessarily regrets, because, like, I feel like you can't really regret things when, you're with God, because there's no, like, sadness or tears or anything. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret not doing, or, like, not necessarily the end of my life. I don't want to be sitting on my deathbed and regret not doing something that I'd wanted to do for forever, Because I feel like when you realize how short life is, and when you realize that the worst thing that can happen is that it fails and it blows up in your face and doesn't work out, it makes you a lot less scared to do that thing. Like, when you realize that, if you try and do whatever and it doesn't work and you're just going to end up where you are now, but at least you gave it a shot, like, that's game-changing, And then also, I think that verse 6 is important because it says, be gracious, seasoned with salt. I think that it's so important as Christians, again, and I touched on this I can't remember the name now, but it was something about, like, how it was kind of controversial and stuff. It was a video that I uploaded, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before, I think. Sorry, I always still lose ahead, so I'm like, what day was it? But the main course of the meal, so, like, the meat of this meal is being gracious. That is the meat. And we season that meat with salt. We aren't having a meal of salt seasoned with some meat juices, And I think that's something that as Christians we so easily forget, is that we need to be gracious before we just are salty. But, like, I don't know. I just get tired of how judgmental everybody is, because it's like, and obviously, like, we all do it. Like, I'm not saying, I'm never judgmental, but, like, you know what I mean? I don't know. The fact that you can, like, just be so angry at other people tells me that you haven't come to terms with something within yourself, because people that are angry at someone else or blame other people for their problems usually have a deep-rooted problem that they can't work, that they're scared to work through on their own, and that they can't come to terms with within themselves, and that's why they're so angry and hateful towards other people. But anyways, again, a tangent, sorry. I need to speed this up, I'm sorry. But continuing into verse 7, it says, sorry, whatever your name was back in the day, Tychus? Sorry, man. Will tell you about my activities. He is a beloved brother and faithful minister and fellow servant in the Lord. And I just want to pause there. That's the type of thing I want to be said about me when the people first hear about me, you know? They're a beloved brother, well, sister, I guess in my case, faithful minister, and a fellow servant in the Lord. That's such a high compliment. Dang. Okay. Continuing into verse 8, it says, I have sent him to you for this very purpose, that you may know how we are, and that he may encourage your hearts. And with him Onesimus, our faithful and beloved brother, who is one of you. They will tell you of everything that has taken place. And I want to just go back and highlight in verse 8 that he was sent to encourage their hearts. As Christians, I feel like it's so important for us to be encouragers, to love on others, to nourish others, and to truly care for other people. Because it's kind of, we are placed on earth first to love God, but then to love people. And that's something that I feel like is kind of the forgotten part of the gospel, you know? Because we all think, a lot of people, I guess there's two sects of Christianity. There's the one sect that is we're kind of high and mighty, and you're not as good as we are because we do this and you don't do this, therefore you're not as good or whatever. And then there's the other sect that's everybody is loved, and God made you the way you are, and he loves the gays, and he loves the whatever, and he doesn't care when you sin, he still loves you, and that's true to an extent, but I guess my problem when churches are all on board with the LGBTQ plus community is, which again, you love the people, but the Bible literally says that homosexuality is an abomination to God. And I'm sitting here you cannot, as a church, realistically preach that God's okay with it when the Bible says something that's exactly the opposite. And, anyways, moving on. But, I don't know. I guess, to me, yes, we need to love on other people. But at the same time, we can't be so tolerant that the values that are taught to us in the Bible that we need to keep are thrown out the window. You know what I mean? So, continuing into verse 10, it said, Aristarchus, sorry man, my fellow prisoner greets you, and Mark, the cousin of Barnabas, concerning whom you have received instructions, if he comes to you, welcome him, and Jesus, who is called Justus. These are the only men in the circumcision among my fellow workers for the kingdom of God, and they have been a comfort to me. Epaphras, who is one of you, a servant of Christ Jesus, greets you, always struggling on your behalf in his prayers, that you may mature and fully assured, that you may stand mature and fully assured in the will of God. And I just want to pause there and go back up to verse 11 when it says, they have been a comfort to me. I think that as Christians, it's extremely important to be able to be a comfort to other Christians and to truly be a safe place for each other to land. I feel like as Christians, it's really difficult to, well, not difficult, but if you move partway through your life, or if you just haven't found that church that's your church, it can be difficult to develop that community and to develop that safe place. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but really understanding that when it says to love other people, we really truly need to be a support system for those around us, and have they need to be a support system for us. It's just kind of game changing, because realizing that you are someone that you need to be a safe place for people to land and to truly recharge and truly lavish the love of Christ on them. It's a really cool thing to realize. And I also love how in verse 12 it says that you may stand mature and fully assured in the will of God. It just reminds us that we need to be confident in God's plan, even when things go completely wrong and we just are sitting there how do we come back from this, how are we going to fix this, what's going to happen. Having that confidence in the fact that what, God's come through before and he's going to do it again, that is something that I feel again is so easily forgotten, but that we really need to pay attention to and continue to lean on, because God's will is ultimately the only thing that is going to always have the same. God's will is the one thing that's going to be a steady thing in our life, and whether or not we surrender to his guidance is going to affect whether or not that will can be accomplished in its full, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but in full, I guess. So verse 13, it says, "For I bear him witness that he has worked hard for you and for those in Laodicea and Hierapolis. Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas. Give greetings to the brothers at Laodicea and to Nympha and the church in her house. And when this letter has been read among you, have it also read in the church of the Laodiceans, and see that you also read the letter from Laodicea. And say to Archippus, I think, see that you fulfill the ministry that you have received in the Lord. I, Paul, write this greeting with my own hand. Remember my chains. Grace be with you." And I want to go back to verse 17 here as I just finished chapter 4. It says, "See that you fulfill the ministry that you have received in the Lord." And I think that, again, it's just so important for us to remember that we have a calling on our lives. We have a purpose. We were created. We weren't just some chance of fate, but we were created for a reason. And figuring out that reason and fulfilling that reason and trusting that God is going to help us along the way when we fall, when we stumble, when everything is blowing up in our face, but trusting that He's going to use our own mistakes, our own faults, our own failures for His glory. That is ultimately when we will be able to continue to fulfill our purpose and complete what He put us on earth to do. And also recognizing that we cannot do whatever it is that He's put us here by ourselves, and that we can only do it by His grace is another thing that once you realize it, that's what's going to help you continue on when things are hard, when the trials of life come, when everything is going right and when everything is going wrong. That assurance and that foundation that you're building is going to truly carry you through. And I also just think that the way this book closes when Paul says, "Grace be with you," is just, sorry, I hit the mic. It's just insane to me because, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what Paul was going through. I mean, like, I can't imagine what the prisons were like back then, and, you know, it's just insane to me. But the fact that he is still able to say to those that are, you know, not in chains, "Grace be with you, peace be with you," you know, it's just incredible. And it just really puts into perspective how good we have it and how we really need to truly love others, because if he can do it, I think anybody can do it, you know what I mean? And so, with that being the conclusion of our Colossians series, I just really hope that you guys learned as much, or at least took at least one takeaway from this book in the same way that I did this time when I was rereading it again. And, you know, I think that it's important for us to remember how, like I just said, how good we have it. It can be so easy for us to compare ourselves and, you know, think that our lives aren't as good as somebody else's because blah, 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 blah. But we have it so easy here in the West, you know? And, like, just when we realize that, it really makes us realize how petty and how silly we are when we complain about things, you know what I mean? But anyways, before I ramble too much more, I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and if you guys have any suggestions or anything for the next series, if I haven't, like, done polls elsewhere yet, please leave your suggestions down below. And, you know, if you guys are new here and you guys enjoy this content, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, because it does help out the channel. And if you guys want more frequent content, I'm not going to say daily anymore, because frankly I've been horrible at being daily on, like, the Instagram side of things, but, you know, more frequent content, I guess, please feel free to follow over there. It is in the always linked in the description box below, and the tea is again always linked down below, because I think that it's important to share the love. And if I can't find the exact one, like, I try and link one that's similar. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else before I end this. I also just wanted to say that I was kind of shocked but when I uploaded the one kind of the long video that I uploaded a few weeks back, I guess like a week and a half ago. Honestly, was that probably somewhere in there? I was kind of shocked by, like, how most of the original feedback was positive, and I'm sure that I'm going to get hate for it because, like, it was controversial, so there are people on both sides. But yeah, if you guys want more videos like that, again, like, please let me know. And just from the feedback on that one, like, I think that is something that people are interested in, having more videos like that, so I will be less scared to upload them, I guess, in the future. But again, recognizing that it's going to happen, because people are going to hate on anything and everything that you do, because not everybody's going to agree. But anyways, long tangent again, But I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as usual, if you leave these videos knowing nothing else, I hope you know how loved and cherished and precious you are to the God that created you, and I will either see you guys on Saturday or next week in next week's video, but yeah, see you guys next time, and bye guys.